This is Anglia. And now, the time at 12 minutes to 11, we join ITN.
No freedom for the Beirut hostages. Terry Waite is home empty-handed. Mrs. Thatcher tells the Falklands, we're with you, even if no one else is. A Christmas present for Westland helicopters, an order from India. And for Second Chance Swansea, the only way is up. Good evening. The Archbishop of Canterbury's special envoy, Terry Waite, back home without the Beirut hostages, says there could be significant developments in the next few days. He also said he'd made contact with the men holding one of the captives, British journalist Alec Collett. It's thought he's being held in Sidon.
Arriving in London empty-handed after his third mission to Beirut, Terry Waite spoke of setbacks in his bid to free the 4 American hostages, but he did have news of the kidnapped British journalist.
I have actually received now further information, which for the moment I will keep confidential, from those who are holding Alec Collett. Some initial contact now has been established with his captors.
He said this video, released by the kidnappers last week, held clues suggesting Alec Collett is now being held in the Palestinian refugee camp of Ain el-Hilwi in Sidon by gunmen responsible for the act that sparked Israel's invasion of Lebanon, the shooting of the Israeli ambassador to London 3 years ago. Early this morning, a heavily guarded British ambassador called at Terry Waite's Beirut hotel for news that Alec Collett's kidnappers had surfaced from the only man who could tell him more. With the press, Terry Waite was choosing his words carefully, and back in London tonight it was clear there'd been no dramatic breakthrough. But he had this message for the families of the hostages.
You know, have hope, never give up hope, and keep courageous, and all of us who are involved in this matter will be persistent, and we'll see it through until we're run into the ground.
Mrs. Thatcher has condemned Britain's allies for their lack of support over the Falkland Islands. Tonight, in a Christmas broadcast to the islanders, she promised the government would continue to protect their right to determine their own future. And she did nothing to disguise her anger over the recent United Nations vote on the Falklands' future, when not one common market country backed Britain.
I regret that the recent General Assembly, so many of our friends proved unwilling to face up to the real issues at stake. They were content to have self-determination for themselves, but not all of them content or prepared to vote for it for the peoples of the Falkland Islands. We, as you know, and some of our friends, stayed true as ever, and we always shall be true.
Police in Dorset have tonight ruled out foul play in the death of an 11-year-old boy whose body was found by a busy roadside this afternoon. The boy is believed to be Toby White, who was last seen alive on his way home to Brothenhampton near Bridport after playing with friends. The search for the missing boy began with police and relatives combing the countryside round his home. They were joined by locals who had abandoned their Christmas preparations to help. Helicopters and military aircraft were also drafted in to search across thousands of acres of farmland. But Toby's body was found by a policeman a few feet from the edge of the busy A35, nearly 24 hours after he was last seen alive. The helicopter makers Westland have finally landed a big order from India, which makes them more attractive to the European and American groups competing in a bid to rescue the company. It's for 21 aircraft worth £65 million. The order was announced in Delhi. Westland say they've not had confirmation yet, but if it's true, they'll be delighted.
The order's for 21 W-30 helicopters, the aircraft which got the company into its current financial troubles. Westland had hoped the W-30 would fill a production gap over the next decade, but the only potential buyers were the Indians. India's new Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi got cold feet and threatened to cancel the order, giving it to France instead. The official reason was that the W-30 was wrong for the job, but the Indian government also had a political quarrel with Britain about Sikh extremists living in this country. It was a crushing blow for the troubled Westlands, which was already working on the order. The company announced 700 redundancies at its Yeovil plant and began to look for a partner. The Indians' change of mind has come too late to save those jobs, but it's brought some Christmas cheer to the workforce.
Immediate future will put people in work. Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit too late to off-put the redundancies, but it should secure the jobs of those people that are staying.
I think probably it's given a bit of a lift to the workforce, because they'll say, well, now we've had this, is it going to make any difference in the future? I should think it would do.
Westland's being cautious. It says it's not yet signed an agreement with the Indians. The announcement won't make any difference to the search for a partner. The battle between the Europeans and Americans over who gets control of Westland will continue.
6 more people have been killed in outbreaks of racial violence in South Africa. Police say 4 people, 1 white, 3 black, died in a riot at a gold mine west of Johannesburg. Another black was shot dead near Pretoria by a black policeman whose home was being petrol bombed, and a black councillor was burned to death in his car at Nyanga, near Cape Town. Laboratory tests are being carried out to discover if a baby who's died in Manchester with traces of salmonella poisoning was infected with the same type of bacteria involved in the Farley's milk scare. At Farley's factory in Cumbria, staff will continue their inspection of the premises and machinery over Christmas to try and trace the source of the original infection. In Edinburgh, 84 hospital patients are recovering after an outbreak of salmonella poisoning caused by a Christmas dinner.
Environmental health officers from the City Council are still at Liberton Hospital conducting tests. They say all possible steps are being taken to prevent further spread of the poisoning. But the officers want to know why 2 previous recommendations that the hospital kitchens be given a thorough cleaning were apparently ignored. Twice earlier this year, they reported that cooking equipment was dirty and that general catering practices weren't up to standard. Conditions were much the same when, at the weekend, they were called in to deal with the salmonella outbreak.
I think it's fair to say that, yes, we were concerned, and we did advise the hospital of our concern, and we pointed out the need to attend to certain deficiencies in their catering arrangements. We followed this up a few months later with another visit when we repeated our concern verbally to support the written reports that we had submitted earlier.
A Cornish woman is spending Christmas on hunger strike to try to get her Russian husband out of the Soviet Union. Jill and Sasha Blonsky met when she visited Moscow for the 1980 Olympics. She returned to Britain last month, but Soviet authorities say her husband can't be allowed out for security reasons.
Jill Blonsky hasn't seen her Russian husband since 1983, although they've been married for nearly 4 years. They have a daughter, Shenya, who's 3. Their case has been taken up by the opposition leader, Neil Kinnock, but the Russians refuse an exit visa because they say Mr. Blonsky could be a security risk.
Well, he did 2 years national service in the mid-1970s, but he's been out of the army now for 8 years, and I really can't think he's a security risk.
And has Mr. Kinnock spoken directly to Mr. Gorbachev on your behalf?
I believe he did when Mr. Gorbachev was here a year ago, that he did have a conversation with him about this. But I would myself like to make an appeal to Mr. Gorbachev. He's a family man. He must understand what it's like for us to be like this, to not know when we're going to be able to live together.
Mr. Blonsky now works as a clerk in a Russian clothing shop. Another lonely Christmas seems in store. Mike Whitmarsh for ITN in Cornwall.
A dam burst in Busan in South Korea has left 2 people missing, feared dead, and 3 injured. It caused the collapse of a temporary road surface covering the construction site of a new subway, and the landslide which followed destroyed a 5-story building. A bus carrying an unknown number of passengers and a taxi also fell 50 feet into the massive crater. But the fire that broke out was contained by rescue workers. In the United States, 3 people were killed and 70 injured when a light aircraft there crashed onto a busy shopping center at Concord in California. The plane smashed into the roof as the pilot tried to bring it down on a nearby airstrip in dense fog. The impact sent debris and a ball of fire down into an area where children were queuing with their parents to meet Father Christmas. And soccer. Swansea City players were back training today after the High Court gave the club a temporary reprieve from bankruptcy. The team needs to be on top form for Boxing Day's 3rd Division derby against Cardiff.
On the shore of Mumbles Bay, Swansea footballers fight for the ball, knowing only too well that in the club offices more important struggles are going on. The directors now have 3 weeks to sort out their problems and try to guarantee the club's survival beyond the High Court deadline. In the meantime, a national appeal has been launched to help wipe out the huge debts. And new player-manager Tommy Hutchison is full of admiration for fans who've promised financial support.
Brilliant, I think that's the only word you can say for it. They are doing the hardest thing, I think. We've got the easy job to go out and play well. I think they've done the hardest thing. They've put their hands in their pocket and brought money out.
A new mood of hope and anticipation for better things in the new year is evident in the club. But do some supporters who've stopped going to watch matches really want football in Swansea?
Oh, hell aye. Oh, my God, yes. I mean, this is the home of football. We produce more footballers than any other town or country in the world. Swansea.
The town has produced some of the game's best-known figures, including John Charles, Ivor Allchurch and Cliff Jones. But it now seems that hard-headed business management is the main ingredient the club needs to stay alive. Ian Edwards, ITN Sport, Swansea.
Flooding in the West Country has ushered in what looks like being a wet Christmas for nearly everyone. The weathermen say there's more rain crossing the country tonight.
In the south and west, floodwaters inundated roads. They threatened to cause subsidence and landslips. Torrential rains fell on parts of Avon and Somerset, making the run-up to Christmas misery for man and beast alike. Residents awoke to find their homes awash. The fire brigade said it was the busiest night of the year for flood emergency calls. In parts of the south, it rained without stop for 9 hours, and more heavy rain was predicted tonight. Rough seas in the English Channel forced ferry lines to cancel many crossings, stranding thousands of would-be Christmas holiday makers. Meanwhile, at the London Weather Centre, the Met men were watching the pattern of rainfall over the next few days. Was the Christmas weather going to stay like this?
It is over the rest of today and into tomorrow, and I think the next change we're going to get is Boxing Day.
So no prospect of snow for Christmas?
Not unless you're in the extreme north of Scotland and on top of a mountain.
Good night and happy Christmas from all of us at ITN.
And now a look at the regional weather prospects. And outbreaks of rain will clear from the region soon after midnight, and some patchy fog is likely for a time around dawn. Temperatures will fall to near 5 degrees. Tomorrow is expected to start bright with sunny periods. However, during the day, some scattered showers will spread from the southwest. It will again be mild, with temperatures reaching 8 degrees. Southwesterly winds will freshen, and the outlook becoming colder with further scattered showers. And that's the weather.